from really this weekend, even last week, about what they were seeing, and they got the forecast almost exactly right. Before the storm was even formed, they were predicting a major hurricane that was going to enter in Florida's Big Bend region. And I don't think it had ever been predicted that you'd have a major prior to the formation of the storm. And yeah, that's what was happening. And even as we got into the last few days, when you looked at the model runs, a lot of the model runs were undershooting what actually happened. National Hurricane Center was always more aggressive at saying this was going to be a powerful storm. So a lot of times when it's not right, people will point fingers. Oftentimes when it's right, people just expect that, but that's actually something that's not easy. And so there had to be a lot of judgment calls on that in terms of how they interpreted the data. So good job on that. That did provide people with an ability to plan. Now, where we're standing now was not in the cone. No one was saying it was going to be a direct hit here in the Tampa Bay area, and yet you've seen a lot of major surge. You've seen a lot of water damage. The damage in different parts of the state, there's damage in many places. Some of the places in the further northern part of the state, once you get past the Big Bend coast, you got a lot of wind damage. You had 140-mile-an-hour sustained winds. It kind of barreled through that northern part of the state and barreled into southern Georgia. So you are absolutely having, and we're going to be down on the ground in Perry and some of those places later today. But the reports we've gotten from those parts of the state was areas that were hit in Idalia and Debbie, that this was more extensive than both combined. So I think you're going to see buildings that survived those two storms didn't make this storm. I think you're going to see areas that were being rehabbed from last year's Idalia. You're going to see those have been damaged or even completely destroyed. So that's difficult because when you go through one storm, it's tough. Then when you have more coming, and then you have a third one come in like 13 months in the same general area, not easy to deal with. So please keep those folks in your thoughts and prayers. So far, there have been over almost 1.4 million power restorations that have happened since the storm began. That's an incredible amount of number. I think we're hovering around 1 million without power, but we have a lot of resources that are being put to bear. I think Melissa from Duke is here. Okay, Melissa from Duke. So Duke had massive numbers of people staged by, ready to go. I think you had some in Tropicana, right here. And so this is all ongoing. And as soon as it was safe to do, you've seen folks out. So Pinellas, most of Pinellas has power restored at this point. Most of Hillsborough, but there's going to be some areas that are going to need attention, and so they're doing that. So we really appreciate that, and we know that that's important. We're also now, Florida Department of Transportation, they've cleared, I think it's over 8,000 miles of road with their cut and toss operations. I-10 is open, I-75 is open. They're working on these bridges. We were able to come in from Tampa Airport across Howard Franklin going westbound. I don't think they've opened it up eastbound yet, but that will happen. And they're going to do the same with Courtney Campbell and with the Gandy. Skyway, I know, is open for at least emergency personnel, and they were going to open that for the general public as soon as possible. All airports in this region other than St. Pete Clearwater are back open, and we anticipate St. Pete Clearwater will be back open very soon. Now, I know some folks had to leave the under evacuation orders. I don't know if they're able to get back yet based on how the local officials are navigating that, and hopefully you'll be able to get back as soon as possible. You know, you may have extensive damage where you can't stay in your home. We still have the Expedia and the Priceline hurricane options that are going to be on there for lodging. And so take advantage of that if that's something that you need. I know Kevin and I today, we're going to be surveying different parts of the state, looking to see what the needs for housing will be in the aftermath of the storm. There's different things that we've done and that we could potentially do in this one. So we're going to see, and we're going to listen to folks and see what the needs are with respect to housing. I know that you're going to start to see points of distribution that are going to be opening, and Kevin can talk a little bit more about that. You know, as we drove in, it does seem like a lot of the stores will likely be open very quickly. Now here, you need people to get back on the barrier islands and have the power going. But my sense is that you probably are going to see some of that happen very quickly. That makes the need for pods maybe a little bit less pressing, although we're still going to do it because we know it's important for a lot of people to have a place where you can go to get water and some of the other essentials. So that is all being done already. And what we've seen with the more recent storms is Kevin and his team kind of are ready to do it, and they just need the guidance from the locals about where to go. You know, it used to be you wouldn't do a pod until 5 days after the storm. Then with Ian, we got it, I think, within 48 hours or 72 hours. Now you're able to get it even the next day. So Taylor County, you know, you're going to see that today. You're going to start to see these very quickly. I'm going to let Kevin come up and provide an update, but we have a lot of damage throughout the state. Water mostly on the west coast and the peninsula. And then as you get into where the eye of the storm made landfall, you see a lot of the really, really strong winds that caused a lot of that destructive wind damage. And that has gone far inland, and you're even seeing it now, what's happening in the storm. You have major, major impacts in North Carolina, in Tennessee, which is not always usual for some of these storms. So this is a really, really large storm, Category 4 storm. And we're going to just continue to do all we can. So I'm going to let Kevin come up and provide an update.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, obviously this is a Cat 3 storm just off the coast of Tampa and St. Pete. Just want to make sure that everybody understands that the state of Florida and all of its resources are ready to go and support Pinellas County, and in this case St. Pete Beach, where we're at right now. We will work closely in conjunction with the county to ensure that we are ready to push out what we call pod packs to the local area based on where they want those set up. I think you'll again see the men and women that are around me right now from the Florida National Guard, Florida State Guard, Florida Highway Patrol, Florida Game and Fish Commission will again be out here helping you recover in the coming days. Some things that I want to talk about as we start to get into the response, post-disaster landfall response, and then ultimately recovery mode is we drove around today. First thing we noticed was the high water marks. You're going to want to take a photograph of that high water mark, both on the outside of your home and on the inside of your home. You're going to need that for your national flood insurance claim. You're going to need that for any other type of insurance claim. You're certainly going to need that for your own personal documentation. The next thing you're going to want to do, and we've already seen it, some of that furniture, some of those items are starting to come to the road's edge. Number one, do not put it in the middle of the roadway. But we would like you, for ease later with the debris companies, go ahead and start separating that. Separate it into sheetrock and construction materials, separate it into furniture, separate it into white goods. If you have appliances and things of that nature, make sure you separate that out. The next thing that you're going to want to do is notify your insurance company. I know the question is going to come up, where is FEMA? I want to let you know that the FEMA administrator will be here later today. We are already starting to write for the governor's signature, something referred to as an expedited major disaster declaration request. We are back in Tallahassee writing that up today based on the data that is coming in, based on site surveys that we're doing like we're doing right now. We will put that up in a request through FEMA Region 4 to headquarters and ultimately to the White House, requesting an expedited major disaster declaration for all categories of work. That's on the public sector side and the government side. And then we'll ask for individual assistance with numerous categories for homeowners. So please stand by. We're going to get that paperwork up. Hopefully we'll get a very, very quick response from FEMA. I know the FEMA administrator is looking for that paperwork already. Again, I want to echo what the governor said today about the National Hurricane Center. They did an excellent job on getting this forecast. That has never been done in the history of the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center. If you go back to see what was done for Hurricane Michael, which was a very similar path, they predicted a tropical storm landfall, and we all know that that was a Category 5 on a potential tropical cyclone. In this case, they were very bold. They made a move. They said it's going to be a major. When all the models were kind of varying back and forth between 1 and 4, they went ahead and made a decision. I applaud that decision along with the governor. So thank you guys down at the National Hurricane Center, the FEMA Hurricane Liaison team. Really appreciate you guys. National Weather Service, local branch offices, really appreciate that. So again, in recap, we're here for you. We're going to continue to be here for you. Go ahead and start taking those photographs. There's going to be bureaucratic things that happen in the future. When you start to apply for individual assistance, they're going to want receipts. They're going to want photographs. Make sure you do that now. All right. The maximum award for a FEMA grant is usually around $70,000, give or take. The average payout in Florida usually is around $5,000 to $7,000. That is not going to make you whole. I want to set that expectation right now. This is not going to make you whole. All right. But again, through the governor's leadership, we have volunteer organizations that are ready to come in here and help you do what we call muck and gut. They come into your home with your permission. They rip the sheetrock out. They get that out of your home. They take it to the street. They will start helping you air out your 2x4s, your studs, and then try to help make you as close to whole as they can. But those nonprofits will be coming in. Again, go to the Hope Florida website. Start filling out the necessary paperwork. We'll be announcing more information about crisis cleanup in the coming future. We have worked with crisis cleanup in Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Idalia, Hurricane Debbie. They've been a great partner. We'll look forward to putting out more information on that later today. Again, Governor, thank you so much. Melissa, thank you for our calls last week, getting folks ready to go for this. And again, General Haas, thank you so much for your support as well.
Yeah, and so Kevin mentioned on the muck and gut, obviously homeowners here are very savvy. They know how to take care of their homes, but to the extent people need assistance with that, because we were driving around the neighborhoods here and you saw the water lines on the house. It was in some instances a couple feet, 3 feet, even right up to the doorknob on a lot of the residences that we saw just in this little stretch of Barrier Island here in Pinellas County. We have groups, I know they've already talked to like Operation Rubicon that goes in and helps with that. And so that's helpful, I think, for elderly, for people that may not be in a position where they're going to be wanting to do work on their house. We're also going to be discussing turning on our home repair program that we started a few years ago, where we work and negotiate with Lowe's and Home Depot, and we get a good price for all the supplies and tools, and then these nonprofits go in and utilize that to help with the muck and guts. But yeah, you're definitely going to need to see that here. I mean, the bad news is this was some significant storm surge. The good news is a lot of those homes that had the water up 2-3 feet, that you can fix that. And that's probably not going to be the case in Taylor County with what happened to some of those places where they were just completely destroyed. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of those groups come on. And then we'll also look to see what other types of housing missions that there can be, and there may be some other things that we can do. When we see these storms coming, we always assume we're going to get hit if it's possible for us to get hit. And so we take a lot of preparations by the state. We have the assets and all that, and that's great, but that would not ultimately be enough if we didn't have strong partners throughout the state of Florida. And so when we have these storms, everyone is in agreement that power restoration as rapidly as possible really helps with the response and the recovery. You've seen in other parts of the country just recently, people weeks without power for like a Category 1 storm. Here in Florida, we've worked really hard to not have that happen, and that has happened in the past, even here many years ago. So we've had great partners with FPL, TICO, and then Duke. And I think you saw Duke had amassed a lot of linemen in different parts of the state. I think they had Tropicana Field, massive numbers of folks. And then they had at the Villages, they had a big area there too. So we've worked closely with Melissa Satius, who's the head of Duke Energy here in Florida. I want to thank her for really leaning in and taking these storms very seriously and really wanting to provide really strong service for their customers, because you just take it for granted. You turn the light on, you get the charge, but when times like this happen, and you can get power on quickly, that really is something that I think a lot of people appreciate. So Melissa, why don't you come up and update on your efforts?
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start first by thanking Governor DeSantis for his leadership and also the leadership that Kevin Guthrie's organization with emergency management displays day in, day out, 365 days a year. As Kevin indicated, I think we started talking last weekend about this particular storm development. So I want to give you a quick update on where we are in Pinellas County. So as of 12:30 this afternoon, we had restored 99,000 customers here in Pinellas County. We still have a little around 200,000 customers that are without power, but that number is decreasing as we speak. We are doing things concurrently. We are continuing to restore and perform damage assessment, especially in those hardest hit areas that sustained flooding, such as parts of St. Petersburg and certainly here on the Barrier Islands. And there are certain components and elements that are left behind by the flooding that deter some of our restoration, but we work very closely with the county EOC to ensure that we can get onto the island, that we can begin damage assessment, and we can restore power as soon as possible and help our customers get back to their lives. And later this evening, we will issue an estimated time of restoration for our customers in Pinellas County. People want to know when the power is going to be restored. We know how important that is to every resident. So we will issue that this evening sometime around 6 to 7 p.m., an estimated time of restoration for Pinellas County. Duke Energy has the privilege of serving other parts of the state, including places like Taylor County that sustained, along with many of our other Big Bend counties, sustained the brunt of this storm. We are going through the same process there, damage assessment, restoration, and working with those county officials and also, of course, with the state. What we ask is that our customers continue to be diligent about their safety, stay away from any downed power line, always assume that it's energized, debris in the road, don't try to remove it yourself. There could be all kinds of hidden dangers in there, and we want you all to remain safe. You have our commitment that we are working 24 hours a day to restore service, but in many places we will have to rebuild service as well. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for your patience. We very much appreciate every single one of our customers and, of course, the leadership from the state of Florida. Thank you.
Thanks. And that's when these storms happen, if power lines are down and there's no debris, that's relatively easy for them to go in, fix the pole, fix the line, and reconnect. Sometimes you'll have to rebuild the underlying infrastructure when the storm is significant, and that's more challenging. And then there's other times, and I don't know as much about here because I don't think we suffered as much wind damage in this part of the state as we did in the Big Bend, but if there's debris in the way of being able to you got to clear the debris, and that can be hazardous. So there's a lot that goes into it, but we appreciate what the utilities are doing, from the private companies like Duke and FPL and TECO, to the municipal cooperatives, the rural cooperatives, all these cooperatives. Everybody has been taking this very seriously, and there's a lot of people, tens of thousands of people, are working very hard at reconnecting everybody with the power. Okay, with that, I'll take some questions. Yes, ma'am. Well, we understand the tragedy when you have a storm of this magnitude, when you lose a property or have your home significantly damaged, when you lose maybe some keepsakes, family photos, all these things. That's more than just a dollar value. I mean, that's something that's really, really significant in people's lives, and it's tough. And we understand that. We also understand that this is a resilient state. This is a resilient part of our state, and we're going to bounce back. We're going to get people back back on their feet. You know, Kevin and his team are working here with the folks in the local community. You know, there's a lot that's going to be done. There's a lot that's going to be done to help people who are in need right now. So I would just say, hang in there. It's not easy to go through this. It's not always going to be easy in the immediate future, but there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Governor, is it hard or a little bit more difficult being that it's your home county, that where you grew up, coming back and seeing some of the destruction?
You know, it's interesting. I actually thought back. I mean, in the 80s, I remember, you know, I'm growing up in Dunedin, and we were paddling in the streets. We thought that was like, as kids, you know, we're out there doing that. And I didn't think much about it at the time because I was very young. But the reality is this part of the state is very low-lying, very susceptible to these types of water intrusions. And so you have a storm that didn't come within 100 miles of the coast and yet churned up this really, really significant storm surge. And so, yes, I have a point of reference here. These are really great communities. I mean, I'll tell you, I always tell people that if you look around the country and you did the top 5 or 6 beaches in America, you'd have several of them right here in Pinellas County would make the top 5 or 6, no question. It's a beautiful part of the country. It's a beautiful part of America. And yeah, it's difficult to see things that are, you know, not tidy. You see trash. You see the effects of major storm surge. But I also understand this is a great place to be. We're going to get back up, and this place is going to do well. It just is, because it's there's very few places around like it anywhere in the country. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you heard, but 25% of residents in the city of St. Petersburg can't flush their toilets or take showers or run anything down the drain. Some of those residents were under mandatory evacuation, but a lot of those residents who live there weren't under mandatory evacuation. Do you think the city should have been more proactive in at least letting residents know that there was a 50-50 chance that the sewage plant would have been shut down and that would happen?
So what you're going to see from me is, you know, I'm not going to be out wagging my finger and second-guessing folks in the aftermath of the storm. You know, you have people that get elected to make those decisions locally. But what I will tell you is, when these things have happened in the past, if there is a request from the state to offer some assistance, Kevin and his team will do that. And we have helped. We helped in Lee County. They had similar things after Hurricane Ian. Maybe you don't need it, that's fine. But if you do, you know, talk to Kevin, talk to his team. There's different things that potentially we can do to be helpful in those situations. But yes, I am aware of the problem, and St. Pete's not the only place in Florida that is having issue with some of the sewage. And so again, any of these municipalities or counties, if you need some support, I mean, I guess we've got, Kevin, we've got the National Guard unit that we've used before to help. Yeah, so we've got some assets, but ultimately, I think we just got to try to get through this stuff together. I'm not going to sit there and wag my finger at anybody for making whatever decisions that they made in their municipality or their county. We got to move forward together as Floridians to be able to get people back on their feet and get these communities thriving again. All right, we are going to be en route to the Big Bend. We're going to survey damage likely, and I guess we're going to go to Cedar Key. I think we're also going to go as close as we can get, maybe to where the storm went. Certainly we'll end up in Perry at a minimum in Taylor County. And then we're going to be back in the Tampa Bay region tomorrow, most likely, survey additional damage and meet whatever needs that we can. But before I leave, I just want to say there were a lot of people working in the dead of night to answer calls, distress calls, in this community and in other communities around the state. And I think we all should be very thankful to have folks, whether it's a police officer, sheriff's deputy, whether it's National Guard, whether it's Florida Fish and Wildlife, Florida Highway Patrol, all these folks who, you know, they've got families they've got to worry about at home too. And yet they're out there putting themselves at risk to be able to effectuate, at a minimum, hundreds of successful rescue missions. So on behalf of the state of Florida, thank you for what you did. I know you're continuing to do that. I know there's more work to be done in that regard, but you really made a difference. Thanks.